Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Bob's Woodshop. Hey, we have something unusual today. A buddy of mine, his dad passed away recently, and he asked me to make him a grave marker. And their religion is Greek Orthodox. And so let's get started with this project. So we wanted to use a piece of wood that was resistant to rot, and I was lucky to have a piece of 2-inch by 10-inch mahogany. This stuff is very hard. And so here I'm just going through cutting it up into sections of 2 by 4. So I've checked the squareness of my table saw blade. Now I'm just chopping it up into the appropriate size pieces. So this is really two projects in one. One is the cross and one is a tribute box, which we'll get into later. And we were kind of designing this on the fly based on a photograph that he had from Instagram. This is basic carpentry skills here. Here I'm starting to cut the 6 lap joints that I have to do. So there's a lap joint on 6 different pieces. And I had the wood up against the fence, which would not allow me to cut all the way across the board because I also had my depth stop on. And so since I didn't have the board taken back from the fence, I ended up having to do some chiseling like this. So there again you see where the piece of wood is directly against the fence. I later figured out it's better to put a spacer between this cross piece and the fence. So this is just very repetitive. I really didn't have, I don't have a dado set for this like you would on a radio arm saw. And I didn't really feel like setting it up on the table saw. So it only really took a few minutes anyway. So like I said, this is just basic carpentry. A little bit of chiseling. Now this cross piece, one of the cross pieces is at a 45-degree angle, and this is where I put a spacer in there. This was a little bit scary in that the piece was very short, but I just was very careful, held it down, and went about making all those cuts, and it all worked out just fine. So a lot easier on this piece. This is the vertical piece, and it was a lot longer. This is 4 feet long, so I felt this was much safer and easier to do these cuts. Again, you'll see the spacer I have. I said the spacer enabled me to go all the way across the 4 inches and reduce the amount of chiseling that I had to do. So the way I'm going to join this is I'm going to be screwing the pieces together with screws from the back, but I needed some plugs. So here I'm just making some plugs on my plug cutter in preparation to do the drilling and filling those holes with plugs. These plug cutters are great. Wood's very hard. So once you get the depth that you need on the plug, which I usually bottom out the bit, I just snap them out with a screwdriver. And here I am I drilled 2 holes. I got one for the size of the plug, and then after that I'm drilling a pilot hole for the screws. And I'm using 1.5 inch long Craig screws. So I got all that, those holes done. So now I'm just prepping it for the gluing and the screwing. This project totally took about 10 hours to do. So I'm leaving a lot out and condensing it all down into 10 minutes, but trying to give you the highlights of the build process. So now that I got one screw in, I want to make sure these things are completely perpendicular. So here I'm getting a square out, just making sure that it is at right angle right here. So now that the cross is done, now I'm going about to start to make the tribute box. And the tribute box is for his dad's photograph and perhaps a small vase with some flowers in it. And I wanted it to have an angle on it so that rain would run off. So what I did is just used a 6-degree angle, and I was there cutting it off with my table saw sled. Here's another section of the project. This is going to be placed in a cemetery down in Virginia, and we wanted to go 3 foot deep, so we used pressure treated wood, and we scabbed that around the cross itself. So here I'm a little bit further ahead on the tribute box, and I'm starting the glue up process here. The tribute box is made out of cherry, and I'm just gluing that with Titebond 3 waterproof glue, as well as stapling it with a 16 gauge nail. Throwing a couple clamps on it for good measure. So basically this box is about 10 inches by 10 inches by 10 inches per request of my friend. I needed a little bit of support on the top front. So again, I used a 6-degree angle and just placed this piece right there. That would give that rigidity in the front. And you'll notice those brass bars in the groove on the bottom, and that was just to make sure that the sides and the bottom are all lined up. I ended up taking them out, obviously. So here are the plugs. The glue is dry, and when I make these flush, I like to use a little saw like this, little flush cut saw, and a credit card, and that helps me not dig into the back piece there. And here I'm getting a little bit smarter and using a glove so I don't actually cut my fingers. And don't ask me how I know that. Okay, so a little bit of sanding goes really fast with my Festool. And then I wanted to round all the edges, so I used my Bosch router with a round over bit. So again, this is all basic carpentry skills, not difficult. It is an interesting project. I've certainly never made one of these, and I'm glad my friend asked me to do this for him. So here doing a little bit of cleanup with my Bosch mini sander, just to wipe off some of those burn marks left by the router bit. Here's a little bit more of the detail on the pressure treated portion of the project. The 2x4 was a little bit thinner than the piece of mahogany, so I had to put a couple spacers inside of here in order to make it flush on the top piece. So this started out as a 2x6 by 8, and I used all of that up in order to scab these pieces around the cross. So now that those thin pieces are in there, then I have to put the third and final big piece of 2x4 in. So now that the cross is done and the tribute box is almost done, I needed to cut a piece of plexiglass to put into the front. And this is a 3/8 inch thick piece of plexiglass, about 9.5 by 9.5. So just do a little cleanup sanding, again with the Festool. I've said on previous videos, this is probably one of my favorite tools in the shop. This makes sanding almost pleasurable. And it just takes a few minutes. This is my buddy, and we're taking a look at it for the first time. Now that it's all complete, there's the tribute box. One design feature that I added into this, which I did not show, but I put a French cleat between the cross and the tribute box so that the box can be lifted off during periods of harsh weather. So my buddy's very happy with all this, and there it is, totally together, and he's very happy and looking forward to getting this on his dad's grave. So that wraps up another project, and had a lot of fun with that. I've got several coming up, so please stay tuned. And you know the drill. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, I'll see you on another episode of Bob's Woodshop. Take care. Bye-bye.